Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Burton here. It's always right on. Just wanted to say a few quick things about what I learned from taking the MCAT. I took it one time and I studied for it and prepared for it 3 times. And I had a lot of takeaways from it, so here's what I learned from it. I'll also go into the test prep companies pretty early on. I'll get into the score and some of the important subjects on the new MCAT too. Number one, when it comes to the score, you'll get the score that you expect to get or that you aim for, and no higher than that score. So that was the first thing I learned from taking the MCAT. So when it comes to score, aim for the stars. If you want to get a perfect score, aim for the perfect score. I wouldn't say set it necessarily as a goal, or say my goal is a perfect score. Just say I'm aiming for a perfect score because I want to have my pick of choices for med school. I would word it like that. When I first took the MCAT, I took it in 2014. I said I wanted to get a 30 back then. It was called the 30 out of 45. A 30 was the average accepted score for medical school, and that was the score that I knew that I had to get in order to get into medical school. So I set my goal as a 30. I studied every day, and what I got was what I aimed for, which was a 30, because I knew that's what I needed to get into medical school. In retrospect, I should have aimed higher, and I would have scored higher, and I'm confident that. And when I was studying for the ACT, for example, I was shooting for a perfect score because I was told once that I was getting all the answers correct. So if you're getting all the answers correct, you should get a perfect score. Anyways, the number 2 things I learned from studying for the MCAT is that the Princeton review is no good. I used the Princeton review. I spent $1,800 on the Princeton review, and basically I ended up not being able to use that test prep resource that I spent $1,800 on. I even took like 8 practice tests with it until I realized it was bunk. So people probably might not even realize that if they don't get 8 full-length practice tests into the prep course there. But I was reviewing my scores and answers, and I was realizing that they don't even have their science down firmly. I was studying one of the sections on the MCAT is you have to know the spectrum of colors and the spectrum of light that makes certain colors in the visible light spectrum, and it had the colors wrong. I memorized all the colors from graduate school, and as you might know, it's ROYBIV. So yeah, it's ROYBGIV, and with infrared before the R and ultraviolet after the V. Anyways, they had the nanometers wrong for the colors, and I just lost all faith and confidence in that company if they can't even get their colors right. So don't use the Princeton review. You're just going to waste your money and have to choose another company. The third thing I learned is that Exam Crackers, abbreviated EK, is an incredible resource. They have textbooks and audiobooks. The audiobooks are geared towards the original MCAT, or the MCAT before the update. However, you can still use them for the new MCAT. They teach the core subjects. The Exam Crackers audiobooks teach all the subjects except psychology and sociology on the new MCAT. And that was literally how I studied for the first MCAT. I took Exam Crackers, or I used Exam Crackers audiobooks, and I would get a notebook, and I would listen, and I would take notes as I listened, and that was how I would memorize different formulas, equations, and facts for the MCAT. The number 4 thing I learned is that Kaplan is a great resource, and you pretty much need it these days if you're not going to be using the Princeton Review, which again I would not use to study for the MCAT. Kaplan, on their most recent set of books that I used to study with, which was last year in 2019, they partnered with the Scientific American magazine to create their textbooks, so they're really well written and thorough and comprehensive. The only downside is the digital format books aren't as easy to flip the pages as I would like. I would like them to be a scrollable PDF, but instead you have to swipe for each page, which most people probably don't mind, but I would rather have a scrollable PDF. Exam Crackers has the scrollable PDF format available, and I just find that I get through the content much quicker if I'm reading digitally on a scrollable PDF. And I can tell you guys in my next post, it might not be my very next post, but I will post on what I learned about reading and how to read quickly and well. But scrollable PDF really helps. Anyways, back to Kaplan. It's really well written textbooks. The strategy is pretty good. And the best thing about it is, and the thing that makes it essential, is their practice tests, their full-length practice tests. They have maybe 10 to 12 full-length practice tests that you can take to prepare for the test, the real test. And they're the closest thing that you'll get to taking the real test, even perhaps a little bit harder than the real test, so that you score better on test day. So, a quick overview of the number 2 to number 4 things I learned from studying for the MCAT 3 times and taking it 1 time is that if you're going to use a test prep company, number 1, you're going to need Kaplan, and you can do this online. You can also do a in-person course. The time that I took it and got a 30, I did an in-person course, and it worked out really well. I got the exact score that I was aiming for. So Exam Crackers is also a very viable option, and the 3rd time I was studying for the MCAT, the 3rd time around, I was using Exam Crackers and Kaplan. I was reading 2 textbooks on each subject. So there are, I believe, 7 sections or 7 different subjects on the MCAT now. I was reading 14 textbooks to study for the MCAT, and I probably got through 8 to 10 out of those 14 textbooks, and it didn't take me much longer to go through 1 extra textbook for those per section, per subject, and it just really made me that much more confident and gave me double the amount of strategy. So that was what I learned, and I really like Exam Crackers because it's pretty fleshed out. They don't put in unnecessary stuff on there, and their strategy is sound. I probably use more of their strategy than I probably use more of their strategy than the Kaplan strategy. However, the Kaplan textbooks go into greater detail on different subjects, so they each have their perks, and I would use both, starting with Kaplan because you need them for the full-length practice tests. However, Exam Crackers does offer full-length practice tests. I haven't tried them, so I can't speak to those. Number 5 thing I learned was the first time I took the MCAT, which was the only time I actually took it, I used private tutoring, and I realized one-on-one private in-person tutoring, which I did through Kaplan, is unnecessary, and both unnecessary and unfruitful. I would meet with him maybe once a week, and we would talk about things that I didn't understand or something along those lines. And then he would also offer me, since he had just gotten into Case Western medical school, I figured he would be a great resource for things unrelated to the MCAT, so it was a little bit of a distraction from actually studying, but I was asking him questions about my application and my application essay and different things, and I didn't really get much from private tutoring in terms of boosting my score or boosting my chances of getting accepted to medical school. So you can skip that part. Number 6, I can teach you my critical analysis and reasoning skills section of the MCAT strategy. I can record a video, I can share you my notes, and this is obviously not what I was just saying about private tutoring. What instead it is when you're using Kaplan or when you're using Exam Crackers, they each have their own strategy for this CARS section, critical analysis and reasoning skills, which used to be called verbal reasoning, and if you wanted to compare it to a section on the ACT, it would be the reading comprehension section. And I came up with my own strategy by looking at different strategies from different test prep companies, and it got me into the 90th percentile plus a few weeks into studying. So if I kept going, I'm confident I would have gotten to the 99th percentile, 100th percentile with this strategy. And I can teach it to you guys. I can record you a video. I can send you an email with my strategy typed out. Nonetheless, I know it will help. Critical analysis and reasoning skills used to be the second time around studying for the MCAT. It was my weakest section, and the third time around I came up with this strategy, which I pulled from multiple different strategies from multiple different test prep companies, and it became my strongest section. So if it helped me that much turn my weakness into my strength, if it's a strength for you or a weakness for you, I am sure it will do wonders for you as well. Number 7, you can't fail on the MCAT. There's no such thing as failing on the MCAT. The only thing that ever happens to get in your way is if you stop trying. So you'll never get to a point in the MCAT where you say, I can't get the score I want. You can get it, you just have to keep trying. Don't stop. So studying for the MCAT is generally a 10-week prep, and just commit to finishing out those 10 weeks no matter what, and make sure that you start early enough before your test date that you have enough time, that you have 10 weeks before you take the test. The second time I studied for the MCAT, I only had like 8 weeks or something, and I was in the middle of courses for graduate school, which is a 1-year accelerated master's program, so it's basically 2 years in one, and I just didn't have enough time to finish studying before the test date. So plan out your 10 weeks and finish the 10 weeks, and you will not fail. The number 8 thing I learned is people will try to bring you down when you're studying for a test like this, and it's nothing personal. It's not something you should ever take personally. It's nothing personal, and what I've found is it's actually a natural subconscious or unconscious automatic reflex, that when people see someone excelling, and doing a great job, and perhaps a job that's better than you could do, they feel threatened, and subconsciously or unconsciously they will try to sabotage you, try to get in your way, try to bring you down, and or try and tell you to stop, and or get you to stop, or force you to stop. And that's just something to be aware of when you're studying for the MCAT, is that someone or something will try and get in your way, especially if you're doing a really great job at studying. Number 9 is that studying for the MCAT is exhausting. And if you're not exhausted, you're definitely not trying hard enough when you're studying for the MCAT. When I was studying for it in college, I would come home from the library after studying all morning and afternoon, and my brain would be fried. I would be brain dead. I didn't really feel like talking to people, or not that I didn't feel like talking to people, but I just felt out of it, dazed, like there was like kind of a fog over me. I was dead, and that's how you're supposed to feel when you're studying for the MCAT. So don't expect to have a ton of energy after you're studying, and if you do, then you're probably not studying hard enough. One of the things that I learned as I was studying for the verbal reasoning, now called the CARS section, is that when you get done with 6 passages and you're not tired, if you're 6 passages in on the MCAT and you're not tired yet, then you haven't been reading critically and hard enough, and you're not trying hard enough. So it's exhausting, and what I find is that if you can, or this is what helped for me when I was studying the first time around, when I was exhausted, I would come home, drink a few beers maybe, sit down and play some video games with my roommates, or if you prefer, you can take a couple hits of a doobie and sit down and play video games and chill out with your roommates. That's a really good way of not getting too burned out or too worked up about being exhausted at the end of the day. The number 10 thing is psychology and sociology is a new section on the MCAT. And the sociology part especially is extremely insightful, and especially when written by Scientific American / Kaplan in their textbook. It's enlightening. It changed my perspective of the world. It made me want to be a doctor more, or it solidified me wanting to be a doctor, which is, if a test prep material can do that for you, that's pretty good. And I just learned stuff about the world that I didn't know, and it made me wish I had taken a sociology course in college, just not because it would prepare me for the MCAT better, but because it's extremely useful, valuable information, and I'm glad they put it on the MCAT. And then the psych part is also very interesting and enlightening. However, it's partially, the psychology part is partially ambiguous, and when I say that, I mean psychology is something that's constantly evolving, the field of psychology, the theories in psychology, and they kind of, at least, yeah, the test prep company and Kaplan kind of confuse you when it comes to psychology, because they include outdated theories, and then they include the most up-to-date theories, and then they include theories in between, which have also probably been disproven. And they require you to memorize and understand them all, but they don't, and they tell you that some of them have been recently disproven, but they don't tell you which ones aren't factual, which ones aren't up to date, which ones aren't correct. And so for the people studying psychology for the MCAT, they're memorizing psychological theory that's both correct and incorrect. However, the test prep material nor the from Kaplan or exam crackers nor the actual test itself will tell you which theories have been disproven and which ones are current and the leading theories. So you're gonna learn 3 theories on the same subject matter, and you're gonna have to memorize them all as if they're fact. However, you know that at least 1 or 2 out of the 3 are have since been proven incorrect, but you don't know which is which. So I think they need to do a better job of either just testing psychological theory that is current, up to date, and hasn't been disproven, or they need to say, like, outright, explicitly, these are the theories which psychology was formed out of that have been explicitly disproven, and so that our doctors aren't confused about which theories have been disproven and which ones are current and accurate. So that was the part about psychology that was hard for me, but it was also very interesting and beneficial as well. And I'm glad they added the psychology and sociology section, to be honest. Just like the cars section, this is my number 11 thing that I learned from the MCAT, is that the cars section, critical analysis and reasoning section, the cars section will make you an outstanding reader. If you're scoring 90th percentile or higher on the MCAT for their their unofficial reading section, which tests your ability to read in all areas, humanities, sciences, arts, basically all areas. It really forces you to become an outstanding reader, an active reader, and that will be rewarding and fruitful for you for the rest of your life if you can develop that skill to that level. That's something I cherish about it, and I'm glad I took it for, and a reason that I'll recommend taking the MCAT to anyone, even if they don't intend to be a doctor. And maybe you can't see right now why you would want such strong reading and analysis and reasoning skills, but when you find yourself reading a book 6 months down the line just for pleasure or for work, you're gonna be thanking yourself for teaching yourself really how to read a book thoroughly and well. And I have a developed strategy that's different than the one they'll teach you from Kaplan, or different from the one that they'll teach you from exam crackers or the Princeton Review, that boosted me up to the 90th percentile in a few short weeks early on into my studies, and the third time studying for the MCAT, that I use now when I'm just reading a regular book. Number 12, the MCAT. Number 12, the MCAT teaches you a concept called deep work, and I read a book about deep work recently, and deep work is basically the idea that you can go for hours and hours under uninterrupted, distraction-free focus and concentration. And this is what the MCAT requires you to do if you're going to be prepared for it. And this is something that was around back when Shakespeare was writing, back when Darwin was writing, back when some of the best thinkers and writers and scientists and etc. were around, and this doesn't really exist anymore in the modern era. This is something that will give you a big leg up if you learn how to do in this day and age, and it's something that I'm working on myself as well. The number 13 thing I learned about the MCAT, And the last thing, which is a bit unfortunate, is that it does cost money to apply for the MCAT, or to study for the MCAT. Um, these full-length practice tests available through Kaplan or the Princeton Review. The AAMC also has some for sale as well, but the grading and reviewing of them is much harder with those, as far as I can tell. You're going to have to pay for these full-length practice tests. You're going to need about 10 to 12 of them. And the only way to get them basically is through a test prep company. So you're going to have to probably pay about $2,000 total. I haven't looked up the most recent prices, but somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 to get this test prep material in order to be able to study for it effectively. And just like education, the MCAT costs money. And when it comes to that, I recommend spending your own money, not your parents' money, not your fiance's money, your own money. When you're personally financially invested in it, it becomes that much more important and valuable to you. You work harder at it, you focus more on it, you have better focus and concentration, and you'll be more regular with it. So when I started paying for my graduate school at Rush University, I paid, somewhere between $0 and $100,000 for a 1-year accelerated master's program. I got my first 4.0, and I went to virtually every single class. I had almost perfect attendance, and I had a perfect GPA. And I've never had a perfect GPA. I didn't have a 4.0 in high school, and I didn't have a 4.0 in undergrad. But in graduate school, when I was paying for it, I was invested in it financially. I was invested in it for other reasons. All that combined together will really help you succeed and flourish as well. So I recommend paying for your own education if you can. Not having parents pay it, and especially not having it paid off through loans, because those can be hard to pay back and can cost you a ton of money. I've never taken out a loan, so I can't speak to those as much, but yes, it does take money. It costs about $2,000 for a 10-week prep course. And when I say prep course, I mean at least the materials, including the textbooks and the full-length practice tests. And they'll also give you a course, whether it's online or in person. And when I took the MCAT and got a 30 on the old MCAT, which is now way expired, that score, but I did the in-person class, and I went to every class, and I think it helped. I would have rather done it that way than attending online lectures, but you don't even have to attend the lectures if you don't want to. You can do self-study with the materials they provide you. It probably helps to take the class. It probably helps to take the in-person in class or online in class part of the test prep, especially since you'll be using Kaplan, and with Kaplan you're either online in class or in-person in class is included with the rest of your test prep materials, so why not do it? And then on top of Kaplan, as I said earlier, I would recommend doubling up your test prep materials and using exam crackers, and that's spelled exam crackers. The crackers part was spelled with a K instead of a C. Exam, KRACKERS. I would use both of those test prep companies' materials. And if you come across Princeton Review test prep materials, You should probably just pass those by and pass them over. So that's 13 things that I learned from taking the MCAT one time and studying for it 3 times. I hope this helps you. I hope I can help you further. If you want my strategy for the verbal reasoning, now called critical analysis and reasoning section, and I actually developed it for this new MCAT, not for the old MCAT. So if you need that, I can publish that. I will publish that either on YouTube, or I'll publish the Word document typed out with the typed out strategy, just like Kaplan or Exam Crackers has their strategy typed out in their textbooks. So that's what I have to talk to you guys about today. That's what I have to offer those of you who are going to study for the MCAT, and that's about it. I hope you guys have a good day, and I hope you, at least in Chicago, it's 55 and sunny out. I hope you enjoy this weather and get maybe a little sunshine. I know I need to. So, yep. Have a good one, guys. Enjoy. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Press subscribe in the link below. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers in the next month, so that I can start getting paid for YouTubing regularly. Thanks, guys.